All right, so today I'll be going over Story of Your Life. I'll be reading it for the very first time. I've never read it before, but it is a pretty famous story by Ted Chiang. It's the one that the movie Arrival was based on. And uh, I don't know. I mean, I watched Arrival, but I must have been kind of sleepy when I watched it because it's very fuzzy. I remember like this ethereal feeling, and these aliens were very unlike the aliens of other films. Um, uh, and they arrive, and I don't, and they have like a language with motions, and you know, yeah, I don't really remember that much of Arrival. I don't remember what happens at the end. Uh, and really the feeling, I don't think I liked Arrival that much when I watched it. I remember it was like it had a lot of good um, people liked it, but I remember watching it being like, what the heck. So that's gonna make this interesting, because that should make this interesting, I hope, because maybe I won't even like it, and I'll still try, but I think liking something and enjoying something is different from being is independent of being engaged by it. You can dislike something but never be engaged in the first place, and I think that kind of dislike is, I don't know about valid. I can't think of a better word right now. So that's like less valid than disliking something that you fully engaged with. Does that make sense? I can't think of a better adjective for that right now other than valid. Sounds a little too shutdowny. But I can't think of a better word right now because it's 7:14 a.m., 16 a.m. Wow, that slurp sound, it was huge. Okay, so I'm gonna avoid doing that right into the mic. Uh, so so I didn't have the best experience with the movie. Gonna read the story, still try to engage with it emotionally, intellectually, um, morally, sure, thematically, whatever. Um, and as I go through it, the thing that's different this time is that now I've actually read some Ted Chiang, and I don't necessarily think I vibe with every one of his stories. I don't actually. Uh, Moreover, his style of writing is not really my go-to style of writing. You know, I don't. It's not like a thing that I kind of seek out in my own free time. But but I can tell that he's a very very formidable intellect, and he's interested in a lot of things that I'm interested in. That I don't actually see written about in the type of fiction that I would normally gravitate towards. So it's actually a new experience for me. I haven't read a lot of sci-fi, so that I think kind of frames me my expectations towards trying to be positive about this, trying to find something interesting in this. Before I go right into the reading, I will spend some time going through some what I call pre-reading. So basically, going through some online resources, just like to quickly figure out mainly, what people like about the story, what people struggle with, and I will take a particular interest in common threads and what people complain about, because because usually a lot of times with these stories that I read, a lot of them get like assigned in college readings or whatever. And if students are complaining about it, you know, hopefully as a reader who is like beyond his college years, uh, I should be able to like situate my reading in a way where you can actually see how I engage with that difficulty in a different way. So, that should produce some insights for you, hopefully. I've been successful with this in previous stories, so I have no evidence to say that I will not be able to do the same thing this time. Language and determinism. Language, I kind of vaguely remember from like that alien language where they kind of have like some movement. I don't really remember. And determinism, like you can't. Oh, that actually vibes that there's a resonance there with the word with the title of the work, Story of Your Life. The story of your life is already pre-written, it's already predetermined, something like that. So I see that kind of thing. I don't really need to read the plot. I don't necessarily think that reading the plot ahead of time is going to ruin my experience, but I do think it changes it noticeably. So skip the plot. We're going to have background. Let's read background. The inspiration came from fascination in the variational principle. You can use calculus of variations. Okay, I'm sure that the story is gonna get into this, so I'm not gonna freak out about fully understanding this just yet. But I just want to get a rough idea of where to place this. Hanging chain, suspended at both ends, can be used. Variational calculus. Okay, it's a type of calculus. I'll just work with that. Regarding the theme of the story, Vonnegut summed it up in his introduction of Slaughterhouse-Five. Okay, I was kind of time traveling through that. Okay, that was kind of interesting sentence. Remembering the future in Slaughterhouse-Five. Yes, I actually remember this. Remembering the future. Okay. 5 years research, and he's such a dude. Ted Chiang is such a fucking nerd, but dude, he's so smart. From what I've read so far, the guy's so smart. I actually get envious. I get jealous of how smart this guy is. So he spent 5 years researching, familiarizing himself with linguistics before writing this story. So this is like labor of love. He's a researcher who writes, right? Which not all fiction writers like. You have to research some, but a lot of fiction and a lot of poetry even. Actually, probably more so in poetry. A lot of people don't do any research; they're just uttering the true feelings they have inside. Whereas with science fiction, you actually have people who are like studying things just to be able to write about it, and that creates a different a different rhythm for the stories that I read in sci-fi, I guess. And it's interesting. It's I'm not used to it as much, but it's an interesting rhythm to kind of like. I'm trying to imagine like writing sci-fi and like kind of finagling, like kind of like figuring out how to put all my research into the story without ruining the story. So I think about that when I'm reading this kind of stuff, because it seems kind of hard to do and to pull off an actual story when you have all these ideas just, like bouncing around in your head. Knowing oh yes, the movie did deal with this. I vaguely remember. Okay. And I don't even remember the future that's supposed to happen, but I remember the feeling of like knowing the future. And then okay. Okay, I think this part is fine. Normally I'd be kind of like I'm out of practice with streaming. I've just been not doing this for a while. So let me quickly look into people's reactions to this particular story first. And then we're about to get started on the story. Here we go. Is this about the entire collection? Because that's not what this is titled. Okay, this is actually a little because a movie came out of this. You're getting a lot of reviews that are like overflowing with excitement because of the movie, but I want to find something less hypey. Okay, this feels less hypey. Eventually have a child. Abstract. But in the story it's detailed. Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting change. Fantastic worldview where, though they were earthbound, and I do remember the movie feeling very abstract. It was ethereal, is the word I used earlier. Variance on SVO structure to reflect our sequential method of perceiving the world and events. Oh, I see why the linguistic. Oh, this is actually. I'm actually gonna. I think I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna really get into this because I do love languages. And I fucks with this. Okay, this was more of a. Okay, not so more of a sort of like a guide to reading it. It wasn't really like a personal reaction to it. I'm looking for more of a personal, like, I don't think this is very good, or I want something more like that. I'm gonna look at. So right now, I was just looking at the story of your life by Ted Chiang, which is supposed to be, I guess, for the single story. But here, I'm just gonna switch to the one with 92,000 votes. So, different page. Right. OMGs. OMGs. Squeeing. Everyone's super excited. Well, you know what? I'm downplaying this too much. I actually should engage with this. Someone cried a lot, had chills during the movie. Okay, so but this person had previously read the story. Okay, so that's interesting. This is the original review. Okay, that's cool. Wait, how? Oh. My cat is just like standing in front of my screen. Anyway. Okay, here we go. Oh, dude, it's too broad. Give me some juice, guys. The problem with this is that it's actually really hard because everyone's loving it, but like the problem is the love is just overflowing and there's nothing specific. Like there's no one saying anything specific. Like about they're not criticizing anything. So I can't I don't have any foothold for this story, just based on people's reviews. So I guess okay, I'm gonna take maybe like 2 more minutes to look for something. I need juice, but if there's no juice, I'm just gonna move on to the story. See, these are just explaining to me, and then they're just saying things that are positive, but they're not giving me. Yeah. Okay. Wasn't too impressed, but that was all. It's kind of vague. Concept of time, twist on time. Just a few years ago when ships appeared in orbit. I don't think I'm gonna get a lot of help here. One last attempt. Let me try to find. Oh, wait, this one has 27 comments. Let's try this. What the? Oh. Oh, I see. Where is? Why did this person do it like this? Because now I can't. Where is? Okay, this person wrote a really long review, so I'm actually looking forward to this, but I can't find the story. Isn't it supposed to be earlier? Why is it organized like this? It's not organized in the same way as the book. I am overwhelmed by this review. Oh, wow. I just did all that just to look for this. Okay, this guy is a hyper nerd, so I am looking forward to his review. Let's go. Or this girl, or guy, or whatever. Reading is nothing, comprehension is everything. While away at a conference for technical writers, okay, cool. Communication are key to technical writing. Same old? No. Aliens arrive, they're weird. Communicating, military take charge. So up until this part, same old. But this is different. She learned languages, non-chronological episodes. Oh, I'm glad I found this review. Oh my god, that was so much work to get to this review. Okay, it's usually not this hard, but yeah, the movie hype was not helping. I remember what it'll be like to. Oh, I see. Yeah. Spoken and written language are unrelated, and the latter has strange properties that affect the consciousness. So that's interesting. That now I'm finally I have something to deal with, which is the idea that your language, just the structure of your language, would change the way that you think. It's, I guess, a pretty common idea in kind of academic-y discourse. But it's interesting to play that out in fiction. So I'm excited for that. So okay, now I have one thing that I can actually point to. All right, I'm excited to see, like, literally in the detail, in the actual, like, the brass tacks of it. I want to see, like, how the language changes the perceptions and the thoughts and the thinking of these characters. Okay, I'm looking forward to that. I finally got something. Oh, dude, I forgot what this referred to, but anyway. No word order. Oh, so Ted Chiang kind of hinted at a similar idea in a previous story. And yes, it's connected to the physical movements. Okay, so this is still in the same, it's on the same thread as I was just talking about with the language and perception. I want to know Sapir-Whorf because I vaguely remember what this is. Oh, you're right. This is where, all right, positive language either determines or influences one's thoughts, linguistic relativity. I think it's discredited, right? Has also received attention, inspired coercive. Is it discredited? No, it's provisionally accepted by many modern linguists. Okay, so to me, I always thought it made sense, but I also thought that it was being discredited. So I'm not going to get into it, but the idea that is there a good, right, color terminology? That's like the classic example, right? In Korean, we have this word. We have two different, and in Korean and in Spanish, we have two different words for blue, and that means that Korean speakers and Spanish speakers, if you actually test them by having like a, like, I don't know, like putting like some goggles on them, or like some goggles on them, and then you're showing them like a big white screen, and then in their peripherals you have like a faint blue dot. Koreans and Spanish people will detect blues faster and more frequently or whatever than Americans, just because in English we have blue, and in Spanish we have azul and celeste. I forget I forget the other word. God, it's been a long time. And in Korean we have paratan hanursek, and so we have multiple blues, and that changes like whether we even see something. So I think that's the classic study there. I'm not going to get into the actual Wikipedia because it's super long, but yeah, that I think that's going to be interesting background to have when you're reading the story. So that's on the language side. Is there anything else besides the language for me to hold on to? Okay, there will be technicalities, so that'll be interesting. And this bounces back off of that earlier concern that I mentioned, which is that as a sci-fi reader, when you have all these like nonfiction ideas bounce around in your head, like how do you actually write a story that expresses some of those things that you researched without actually ruining the story? So I think that's kind of the sort of central tension of sci-fi. Not, you know, I'm not really a sci-fi expert, but I feel like that would be a central tension of sci-fi writing. That is, and so you know, that's something as a craftsperson, as somebody who also writes for fun. That's something that interests me. So I'll be taking a look at that as well. Okay, so we have the movie that I barely remember, so I will not be doing that many comparisons. Then we have the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which plays out through kind of like the alien language here, and then we have just the basic formal tensions of sci-fi, and those are some things I'll be looking into as I go into this text. Okay, this pre-reading was actually a little painful, but it's over. A lot of people love this story though, and people that I like, people whose tastes in books that I respect, also really recommend this story to me. So I'm looking forward to it. Are you? Here we go. I'm just gonna reset my brain. Okay, here we go. Story of your life. Your father is about to ask me the question. Now, actually, I remember reading this first sentence before my pre-reading, and at that time I thought the you was the husband, but now I know, because she can speak into the future or something crazy like that, that this is probably talking about the baby. Right. Now, even if you didn't know that, the word evening out, dinner, and a show, at this point, you should realize that the dad is the husband and the you is the baby, is the child. This feels romantic to me. Maybe I'm just suffering from my own personal life, my setbacks, my setbacks. Maybe I'm like vulnerable right now, but it feels romantic to me in my life right now. Okay, here we go. Ellis Avenue? In Chicago in Hyde Park, there's an Ellis, I think, Avenue. So I wonder if they're probably not in Chicago. I assume Ellis is a pretty common word. I just zoned out for a second. The night you're conceived. Okay, so we're placing right now. We're set the story of your life, right? And now life in this case for a baby isn't necessarily referring to the entire lifespan. It could just be referring to the day of the birth, and the night you're conceived. That's kind of the central setting so far. And I'm specifically focusing on the setting because I know that there's going to be a lot of crazy things that happens with the setting. So I want to anchor myself here. And we will never get that chance. And there we go. Those 5 words, we'll never get that chance, sets up a lot of tension immediately. Because now I know that the mom is never going to make it to her child's adulthood. Oh, what? Oh, we are moving forward into when she's 12, or when the child is, I think, she is a child, a boy or girl. We don't know. I don't know. This is it's cute and realistic dialogue. Hang on, what? Belmont Street. Uh, Strangers. Uh, Conceived and grew up in. Okay. So the first after your arrival. Arrival. Also the second shortly after your departure. Departure where? Departure is an interesting. Like, I don't know how to situate this idea of departure for a child. Like, earlier we were talking about when you're ready to have children of your own. Okay, so college. So when you're ready to have your children of your own is probably like, when the daughter is in her 20s, 30s, late 20s, 30s, or something like that, right? Okay, so departure would be like when the daughter's 18. Nelson is a different person. Okay, so divorced and remarried. Yeah. Okay, that was interesting. What's really interesting is we're telling the story of your life, of you, as in the daughter's story, and we're done. Like this right here, I know how the story ends. We're done with that story. So we have gone over the entire story of your life in the first page, and this is a novella. It's a longer work. So we now we need to figure out what the story of your life is actually referring to, because it's not referring to this story. We're already done with this story. It's a different story. So formally, that's structurally that's the sort of that's generating a new tension for me. So it's like, oh, what story are we focusing on now? Okay, what life, what story? I also think a lot about how it began just a few years ago when ships appeared in orbit and artifacts appeared in meadows. And by the way, this is a very efficient sentence. The government said next to nothing. The tabloids said every possible thing. This little parallel structure sentence. And then I got a phone call request for a meeting. Okay, so that's interesting. This sort of like aliens suddenly arrive at the end of the daughter's story. I right now I've read some Ted Chiang stories that I thought were written a little clumsily, but right now I feel it feels flowy, smooth and calm. So no complaints as of now. Military man, academic, Colonel Weber, Louise Banks. Her name is Louise Banks. I'm always terrible with names, so I need to like slow down on them. LB, LB, LB. Dr. Gary Donnelly, GD, a physicist. Now, we don't know what kind of scientist she is, LB is, Louise is, so I'm still looking for Gary the physicist, Louise the alien specialist, apparently. Oh, like, sure. We're gonna pretend there's no aliens here. Vaguely like that of a wet dog shaking the water out of its fur. You know, now that I think about that sound, that's very specific. I remember reading this quotation in one of the reviews earlier, and I thought that wasn't very interesting. But now that I think about it, it's kind of interesting. I withheld my comparison to a wet dog. Well, yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. Could you help me? It would help me interpret those sounds. Oh, I see. No, what was the context? Okay, please give me the. Oh, sorry, I got my characters flipped backwards. Yeah, of course it would help to know the context. The recording is all I can offer. It is frustrating as someone, as an academically oriented person, when somebody's just asking a very specific question and they don't know the overall system, and they just ask extremely specific questions, and I'm like, dude, I need to know the context. I vibe with that so hard. It's so frustrating when people just ask me, "Oh, how do you use this word?" I was like, dude, uh, give me a full sentence, please. Doesn't sound like they're using a larynx, but that doesn't tell me anything else. Not used to consulting a civilian. Right. Just because military people, I assume, are military scientists are, I assume, are a little bit more accommodating. Suppose I gave you an hour's worth to determine the spectrograph. There's just a need for the spectrograph. I couldn't determine that with just a card, no matter how much I need to talk with aliens directly. Not possible. I like the sort of I like this the verb. I like the so we got a lot of personality right now from this character. Actually, I'm gonna save this. That was a lot of personality. Oops, yeah, I forgot how this thing works. So a lot of personality came through in this one sentence for me. I tried to break it to this idiot gently. Yes, you can choose to not let me talk, but if I don't get to talk, then I don't get to learn. Clearly, his philosophy was the less the aliens knew, the better. Hang on. Ooh, he rolled his eyes? Why he roll his eyes? Wait, I'm not. Wait, this guy, the physicist, is rolling the eyes at her? I don't know the direction of this rolling the eyes. I don't know where he's aiming it. Could you do it without teaching them English? I'll get back to you on this matter. This is actually. I kind of like this this little episode of Bureaucracy. So we have the story of the child's life just right away in the first not even the first act, like the first page. Um, then we get the hint of aliens, and then we just go straight into bureaucracy. We're right in the thick of the bureaucracy of it. Uh, you don't get to know anything, scientist. You know, like the military and the military purposes and like the defense goals and like the academic goals are colliding here. So we have multiple sort of like levels. We have multiple registers we're working with. We have mama. We have mama register. We have academic register, and we have societal and national defense or global defense register. So we have multiple things going on at this point in the story. So she's not a physicist, she's a linguist. Forgot to follow up on that. Second most momentous phone call. So that's also an easy way of developing interest in a reader. The crazy thing that just happened, by the way, that wasn't the most crazy thing that just happened. Mountain rescue, speaking to each other maybe once a year tops. First thing I'll do will be to call. After I get that phone call, though, the first thing I'll do will be to call your father. So, and now I should comment on the grammar. She is physically in the day. She is physically set in the day that her child is born, and presumably she's actually holding her baby in her hands. Okay, and I guess I didn't explicitly imagine that till just now. I think she's holding her babies in her hands in what we would call the present. But the story is happening in the future. The story gets told in the second person and in future tense, which is very unusual. You will, I will, he will, they will, right? So that's actually that just needed to be mentioned. I think right now there's nothing else to say, so I'll just move on. I'm just seeing 25 already, but I didn't fully read this. But I'm like, when I see the 25, I'm thinking, okay, so before she has children, maybe before the divorce or after the divorce. Like, I'm just thinking about all that right now, which is what's slowed me down here. He and I will drive out, perform the identification, the morgue. So somebody died. Review. What? Oh, dude. I was not expecting this. Oh, wow. Okay, that was. So we went straight back to the. Hang on. I want to. Because Did I misread something earlier? I heard something about before you have a child, and so I was assuming that she was going before. I was assuming that the you was gonna have children. Oh, and we'll never get the. Oh, I misinterpreted this, or I was too confident that it meant that the mom was gonna die, but actually it wasn't the mom that died; it was the child. Damn, that was a lot of tragedy in what, like 2 pages. I was not ready for that. And that was actually a bad logical, like for my SAT students, that was actually a bad logical inference that I made that actually generated this sort of moment. You know, it's because I inferred that the parent was going, that the mom was going to somehow like die or suffer some sort of fate. But it was actually the child. Now I think that inference was probably what Ted Chiang was banking on, because usually you don't expect the child to die. You usually expect the parents to go before the child. So I guess that was intentional on the author's part. Wait, I'm on the wrong page. Let me zoom. Here we go. Story. So that's the real ending of the story of the daughter's life. Why am I not? Okay, I'm losing track of the setting. So MP is military, military police. Open the gate. Encampment. Okay, so now we're in an encampment. There we go. Um, an alien device. Cool. Looking glasses. 9 of these. 112. So actually not that many in the US. I kind of like how we're subtly de-emphasizing the importance of the US here. But that's actually good because it makes the problem, it's good for the story because it makes the problem feel larger. Um, Two-way communication devices with the ships. Cuties. Like a lazy joke. That's a pretty lazy joke. I don't know if I like that. Glass. So they have multiple teams of scientists doing this. Goodies. Wonder where the cooties and the goodies is coming from. It's kind of like this weird folksy like register that I'm not sure what to do with. My daily report had to include estimates on how much English I thought they could understand. Right. That's interesting, right? Because that is kind of like the military combative stance. You want the other side to know as little as possible, always. That's, I don't know, poker, that's whatever it is, anything competitive. It's not really the academic mentality. He's being sarcastic or something, or just being silly. A slime dime. That's referring to the looking glass. 10 feet high, 20 feet across. So it's huge. Okay. Um, Brown grass. I don't know why I'm zoning out on this brown grass. It's not that hard. Um, Table. Hang on. Let me just like create the scene in my head. Maybe I'm just failing to create the scene. There's a glass. There's a looking glass as in like a huge mirror. We have grass. We have an activation area with white spray paint as a perimeter, and then we have the table, and then chairs, and then power strip, generator, lamps. Okay. And I'm actually remembering the scene from the movie even, so that's helping. Gary and I looked at each other. Illumination behind tinted glass. Huh. So that's an interesting way of just saying it's starting to glow in a way. There was this illusion of depth. Oh, but it's glowing. Okay, right. As if there is depth. I felt I could walk right into it. Diorama of a semicircular room. Diorama is like a what's a diorama? Okay, right. It's like this tiny 3D model of a semicircular room. No aliens. A door in the curved rear wall. Okay. So we're looking into the mirror and it looks like a room. We're doing all the technical stuff, setting up. And then they enter. A barrel suspended at the intersection of 7 limbs. 7 limbs. Seems evolutionarily suspicious. Seven limbs, okay. 7 limbs, and seven feels alien, yeah? We can agree on that. And radially symmetric, so this is reminding me of like the Book of Revelations here. Okay, a barrel. Okay, that feels very Book of Revelations. 7 limbs. You know, does 7 come out in the Bible? I forget. It does, right? A lot of times. Radially symmetric. Any of its limbs could serve as an arm or a leg. Heptapods, okay, which is, literally Greek, 7 feet. 7 feet. No joints. Vertebral columns. Fluid. Torso. Kind of reminds me of like an amoeba. Is that the right image? I might not be remembering what an amoeba looks like. 7 lidless eyes ring the top of the body. Gross. Walked back to the doorway, made a brief sputtering sound. Another heptapod. It never turned around, so it's always weirdly oh, it rings the top, so there's no turning. It's always sort of like panning. That's such a crazy. Yeah. It doesn't rotate on the I guess Z axis. Or I guess is that the Y axis? Whatever, the vertical axis. It's just sort of like that's a very funny image actually. It's very ethereal. Monolingual discovery procedure. You're cracking a code, except you're actually talking to them to some extent. Corduroy ridges arranged in whorls and loops. No smell. Animated stranger. Human. Human. What are you? Oh, so they have digits. They have fingers, kind of. It has an orifice at the top of its body. flutters. Flutter 2, Flutter 1. Okay, so this is a lot of decoding. You gotta really start triaging what these words mean. Okay. Chair differed distinctly. Okay, so we're getting chair. 3, 2. Okay, so there's some consistency, which is interesting. I think this part would be less interesting if you don't actually go through the mental calculations in your head. Like, okay, I have to what? Flutter 3, Flutter 2, and like you're not actually like you have to. I think if you want to be interested in this story, you have to also be in the scientific mind here. I guess you could theoretically just skim through all this. I don't know if that might damage your appreciation of the story. I don't know. Pessimistic. So the other option is also possible. It's just coughing. Moose calls. Okay. So okay, so we try to actually vocalize their language. It doesn't work. This reminds me of when I'm trying to speak to people in Vietnamese in Vietnam, and they're like, "Huh?" All right, so because I haven't really put the effort in to like improve my pronunciation yet. Anyway. Right, it's really helpful to have a second heptapod because then you can use the second heptapod to confirm whether they use the same word for a given object. Ooh, history time. As we swing into history time, I do want to take a quick break. I'm feeling my body a little like shutting down, so just a quick break. I'll be right back. Like in 2 minutes, and then we'll continue the story. I didn't have breakfast, so I'm just having some crackers. So we're getting into the nitty gritty now. If I could diagram the story, I guess I'd have like a base layer. Like if you've ever like edited video or audio, you know how you have like multiple tracks or layers that you're working with. Like I have this layer of we're constantly in the present in some way. That's like the framing device. And the present is actually the mom with her daughter that was just born. Then the second layer is the layer of the daughter's life, from birth all the way to her death when she was 25. But that second layer, I don't think we're going to revisit that much. So now we're in the third layer, where I guess this is before the death. Maybe I should go back and double check this. But this might be before the daughter's death, where the mom is hanging out with the military. And the aliens. So probably for like the next 10-20 minutes, we're going to be in the nitty-gritty of like trying to communicate with the aliens, but we'll see. Because what else could you do? I mean, you're not going to talk about the daughter layer. I mean, it's like, I don't know what else could happen. So yeah, I think we're just going to go dive deep into this alien situation. Oh, except what I'm looking at right now in front of me is actually a bit of history. So we're swinging out to history. What an academic. This actually reminds me to some extent. I mean, it probably is partly because the word ship is coming up, but this reminds me of Moby Dick, because Herman Melville would just do these insane digressions that were kind of academic. I think that was like a long chapter in the middle of Moby Dick where he just details the anatomy of a whale. Anyway, which technically that kind of makes it science fiction. No, but it's not necessary to the plot, I guess. So anyway, random digression. Let's go back into the story. History time. Kangaroo. It wasn't until later that I learned it meant. What did you say? Almost certainly untrue. They don't generate many good anecdotes. So we're actually not in history. I thought we would go into history. We're actually just in the future, the further future, where she's actually kind of famous as a professor, and so students sign up. Okay, you know what? Earlier I was debating whether or not to double check this, but I want to double check this because I suspect that if I let myself lose track of the chronology, I'm gonna get wildly confused later on. So I just want to double check. So you'll be 25. That's the death. I'm specifically looking for the second most important call. That whole paragraph. Oh, that's over here actually. At that point, your dad and I are only speaking once a year. So this is so they're already kind of separated. So let me, dude. Shortly after your departure, by then we already moved. So they already separated when she was like 18ish. And she dies when she's 25. And so this alien thing, this happens before or after? Oh, the alien thing happens before the birth. Because of course it happens before the birth because she's predicting everything. So, oh man, that was such a okay. Okay, that was just sort of that was bothering me, like not being able to place when she's actually doing this conversation with aliens. Okay, okay, so I'm back on track, I think. Can I be maid of honor? Also, cute dialogue, very real. Center of operations prefab, invasion, evacuation, invasion, evacuation. Okay, so it's okay. So again, I actually kind of forecasted this, but there's the two registers, and there's ongoing conflict. There's ongoing tension, rather. Um, there's the academic sort of approach, which is more conciliatory, and they're sort of like, yeah, let's talk, And then there's the sort of military plotting in the background, okay? And this is going to lead to more and more tension over time. I am predicting. Oh, I just zoned out for a second. What's happening here? Shown off. Okay, you know why? It's because I lost track of the setting. They're in the office now. I feel like this is very it's a little speculative, but I feel like Ted Chiang Ted Chiang deeply understands what it's like to know a topic very, very well and to have non-specialists grow you on it. And 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 I think he knows that his readers also many of his readers also know that. And this at this like phrasing here, I take your point, he admitted. And how would you respond to them? Show them the words they display to you? I think he's actually writing it that way, assuming that it's gonna be maximally annoying. Like this is like super annoying for an academic. Um, he doesn't even hint at it, right? So I don't know. I'm speculating, but I feel like that's the feeling you're supposed to have. Like partly, I guess, it's because for me, I realize how obvious this dialogue sounds, and maybe it sounds obvious. Of course, it would be easier to follow graphemes instead of phonemes or whatever, the writing rather than listening, right? But having to methodically explain it to somebody else, that would be annoying. For me, it wasn't even a, yeah. The clash of cultures is a major ongoing motif right now. For once, the person waiting for her date to arrive is me, 16. And they were basically already getting divorced by the time they're 18, so I guess. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So she's already split with the father. Okay. So, an ongoing. Okay, I guess there's another layer that I wasn't really that I was neglecting. And so earlier I predicted that we're gonna go real deep into the aliens, but we that's I was wrong. And you know why? It's because I didn't predict that we could go back to the daughter layer, but that's because I was being too narrow. It's not just the daughter; it's also the divorce. Okay, the divorce also happens at the same layer. So we have we're already beyond really the separation. Like we have the mom meeting some other guy, but that generates more material in that layer. This is this is actually good dialogue because I didn't like some of the dialogue in a previous story, but this is good dialogue. Really hot. That's so funny. Okay, moment of appreciation. Um, Earlier at the very beginning, when I was reading the first page, basically, I said the prose was flowy, kind of gentle or soft. I don't remember exactly the wording I used. Um, I feel this feeling of familial connection, and and this is gonna hurt by the end. I can tell it's gonna hurt by the end because we're just sort of linking. Um, we're creating links between the mother and the daughter, these personal connections, and uh, that in and of itself is good fiction. But then on top of that, we have this other thing, this investigation of the language of the aliens, and this like ongoing tension with the military, and it could be considered pretty technical and dry. It's actually I'm sure plenty of readers would read this and feel it's technical and dry, but we have both in the same story, and it's they're meshing very well. So I am just respecting this accomplishment here as a writer. Two parallel corpora. Spoke. Oh, corpora like corpus, like body of work. So the first body of work is the spoken body of work, and the second body of work is the written body of work. Okay, so it's not alphabetic, appears to be logographic, but apparently it's not going to be logographic either because the word appeared. Alphabetic means that the phonemes are encoded into the graphemes, I guess. Like the sounds come directly from the look of the letters. Um, for example, Chinese isn't. You can't know the sound of a word just by looking at the word in Chinese. You can make some guesses because there's some conventions around it, but you can't know it. Um, so so Chinese language is not alphabetic. Let me know if I'm wrong, but that's what I remember. I think logographic is what Chinese is. Bony ridges, respiration, speech. Perhaps their mouth was their anus too. Those sorts of questions would have to wait. This is like this is just like a lowbrow joke. This is this is extremely lowbrow. Uh, Gary demonstrated each one with a charming lack of self-consciousness. I thought immediately she falls in love with this guy, but then I realized that first of all, this is before the child, and second of all, the guy's name was Nelson. So I guess the nice thing that was conveniently sort of glossed over is that these heptapods are very motivated to teach the language. Oh, I just used the word glossed. Must have been in subconscious recognition there. It looked like they had nouns and verbs. Thank goodness. I was trying to make a connection to some basic linguistics knowledge that I have, but I find it hard because linguistics is a little complicated for me. The writing is not as clear cut. For each action, they displayed a single logogram instead of two. But why would Flapper write that? Right, so it's missing the subject apparently. Okay, so now we're gonna add not just subjects, but we're gonna add objects. So, apple and a slice of bread. Eat some. They have fruits of their own. It's cute. Um, brought the gourd down between the legs and the gourd reemerged minus the bite. Corn-like kernels beneath the shell. The sound spectrographic gourd change when it's used in a sentence, perhaps possibly a case marker. Case marker is for case. In English, we don't have case markers, but like, oh, dude. Yeah, in certain languages, like Greek, um, or Korean, if it's the object or the subject, if a given noun is like an object or a subject or some other function in a sentence, um, we have like things that we do to that noun to change it to make it clear that's an object or a subject. Uh, I guess a kind of similar English thing is like the apostrophe s for possessive. So if it's not, originally it's a noun, but you want to make it a uh, possessive case, quote unquote. Um, then you put the apostrophe s on it, right? So that's kind of like a case marker. I feel like if a linguist actually discovers this video, I'm gonna get into trouble. But whatever, I'm gonna work with what I can. I'm just thinking right now suddenly about that random detail that Ted Chiang spent 5 years researching for this, and I'm feeling like he wasn't literally only researching linguistics for 5 years. That would be extremely inefficient, and that would actually demean his intelligence. Like it's probably just marketing. It's just marketing terminology. Study for 5 years because people get impressed by numbers. Um, I'm thinking it was just in the back of his mind for 5 years. Is basically what that was. So, um, what so far the level of linguistics that's coming out is not like some insane level that I wouldn't be able to understand. Although who knows? I guess to consider the flip side of that, maybe there's a lot of um, there's some hidden underlying mechanisms that I'm not catching that'll kind of like play out throughout the story. Who knows? Ligature. Now I'm running into a word I don't know. Well, right. Oh, right. I remember this word, ligature, the printing word, AE. But, hmm. Okay. Melted together. Analyzable is a specific term, I think, in linguistics. It means that you can actually break it apart, I think. Actually, now that I think about it, Anna and Liz are probably I think they're Greek and never mind. I'm not gonna get into it. Can't remember. Actually, no. Analyze is an interesting word because we use it all the time and I forget. So I'm going to quickly double check. Yeah, let me share my screen as I do this so you guys aren't just. Shortcuts, why are you not working? It's so annoying. Hang on. Oh, it's still not working. No, that's so annoying. Okay, because that would make it a lot faster if I could just use shortcuts. Right, I was thinking of cutting. I didn't say it. I should have cut it. I should have said it. But it's not cutting. It's unfastening. That's interesting. Up, back to route, and loosening to unfasten, which is roughly the Proto-Indo-European loosen, divide, cut apart. Okay, so break it into pieces. Break it into pieces. Analysis. All right, back to the story. Here we go. Their script isn't word divided. Okay, so it's not based on words. A sentence is written by joining the logograms or the constituent words. They rotate and modify them. So they can read a word with equal ease no matter how it's rotated. I wonder if it's a consequence of their radial symmetry. They have no forward direction, so their writing doesn't either. Highly neat. Who modify? I was actually about to say the same thing. Who modified the word need with highly? Jeez. I could have. This is the kind of joke that Saul fucks with. Okay. Colonel Weber and his cohorts pondered the implications. So that my colleagues seem more remote than the aliens. Okay, I like this little juxtaposition here. They weren't arranged in rows or a spiral or a linear fashion. They would write a sentence by sticking together as many logograms as needed into a giant conglomeration. Okay, so it seems chaotic. Primitive science systems, which required context. They were considered not very useful for recording information. So that is, by the way, an interesting background scientifically that I think is important to know. So one thing that's interesting about this technology idea, right, is that writing is considered a technology, and maybe you guys in high school world history you learn it that way. I don't remember if that's the way they teach it, but writing is considered a technology, and specifically, what kind of technology is it? It's a cognitive technology. It enables us to remember more and to transmit information across vast distances, and which leads to a lot of things, a lot, a lot of other things. So it's hard to build civilization without something like, some form of storage for knowledge. Oral traditions have meaningful ways of knowledge transmission through oral methods, primarily poetry. But, when you really compare it one to one, it's kind of limited. Everyone has to be there listening and remembering the rhymes and whatnot to contain all that information in their heads. It's shocking how much you can contain when you have like a metrical as in like a meter, like a rhythmic background to the thing that you're trying to remember. There's scientific studies on that about how effective that is for memory and stuff like that. But it's like riding a bicycle versus having a car. I mean, a bicycle is way more efficient than walking or running, but a car is also way more efficient than a bicycle. So writing is like that car, whereas epic poetry or oral transmission, that's like a bicycle. And so that means you can actually keep developing. You can continue to develop cognitive technologies like this. I guess Google would be a good example of that. Now, ever since Google and Wikipedia, people have been able to forget more. Phone books, same thing. You're allowed to forget more because you can just bring it all up. I mean, phone books is basically just writing. So phone books is just a variation on that. But but Google is interesting. Google feels substantially different from writing by itself. The searchability of the internet. So, yeah, those are cognitive technologies. So the tension that's being generated in the story at this moment is literally, it's an intellectual tension. It's how can you have an advanced civilization with writing that looks like a logogram that's just a big mess of words? Okay. So we haven't settled on this, although I'm pretty sure number 3 is going to be the answer. And we're going straight back to that other layer of the daughter, the personal layer. Okay. The daughter, uh, maybe the husband, maybe the new boyfriend. Junior year of high school, so she's getting older. So it's interesting because there's a dual pass chronology. We went from baby to 25 and dead very, very quickly, and now we're kind of rebuilding it, but we're kind of jumping around. I get no, we were a little younger. No, we actually are rebuilding it from like 5 to 12 to junior year of high school. So So we're doing 2 passes through that, through the story of your life. I just zoned out for a second. Like I'm missing the joke. Party. Oh, I see. But you won't be someone I could have created by myself. I feel that really hard. I said this earlier. Maybe I'm just personally vulnerable right now. It's life. But this, up until now, the husband has only been mentioned with any sort of emotional weight twice, and this is the second time. The very first time was the very first page where the husband talks about um, where romantically the husband proposes having a child, and this is the second time. It's so biological. It feels so biological, this connection here. And so again, going back to the layers that I'm talking about, we have the personal layer, we have the academic layer, and then we have the sort of bureaucratic societal layer. Um, the bureaucratic societal layer is very impersonal, um, but weirdly, the academic one feels very intimate. And so I'm looking for resonance between those 2 layers now. Semasiographic writing system. I went to the chalkboard, drew a circle with diagonal. Okay, not allowed. Sure. And so does this, but only one is a representation of speech. Okay. Logographic is semasiographic. Okay. Not sure how this is different from it just being logographic, but sure. It's not picture writing, which I think is logographic. A visual syntax that's unrelated to the syntax of their spoken language. That's interesting, actually. A visual syntax that's unrelated to the syntax of their spoken language. So in spoken language, we have a syntax, something like "I like you," and has the like "you like me." Um, there's like an implicit subject verb. The subject verb object order is implicit. It's linear. We use me for objects. We use I for subjects when we're talking about the personal pronoun for the first person. Here. But then there's some visual, but we draw it differently. I don't know. Okay, let's just go for this example. Okay, so yeah. The physical orientation is how you identify subject and object. Changing the curve of the strokes in the middle. So there's a visual syntax. So this is different from Chinese in the sense that like you could actually like you're actually modifying the radicals themselves to create entire sentences if you are to use Chinese as an example. So you'll have a bunch of radicals for a Chinese character and that creates one word, but in this language that word is the entire sentence and the radicals you modify. So okay, that makes it easy enough to imagine. I bet Ted Chiang being of Chinese background probably helps him to think of an example of a helps him to create a new language like this by being able to refer back to Chinese. PJ, what's up? See clearly, sure. And the changing the curve of those strokes has no parallel in their speech. With the spoken version of these verbs, they have to add a prefix to the verb to express ease and manner. Prefixes for see and hear are different. Math, music, and dance notations. Okay. Yeah. I can vibe with this because I have poetry background and we think about this kind of thing. Okay. I can feel the excitement even though Ted Chiang isn't making it obvious. So are we ready to start asking about their mathematics? Because of course the physicists would ask that. Although this the parts of the dialogue that feel a little weird is the sort of weird folksiness of, to me it seems strange, this folksiness of this female protagonist, the goodies, the um, was it cooties, and then goodies, and then here patience, good sir, patience is a virtue. I find that hard to imagine. I don't know if I don't know if I'm the only one, but it doesn't feel very natural to me. Okay, I want to do a quick progress check just because I also want to be able to plan my. So we go from page 89 to 145. I have so far read about 20 pages. and there's about 35 pages left to go. There is exactly 35 pages left to go. So I am like 40-ish% of the way through. Let me think. I need a snack. So you know what? I'll just take a quick snack break. All right, quick snack break. I'll be right back. It'll be less than 2 minutes. We're gonna develop. So I'm still looking for resonance between the the two layers that I keep talking about, the academic layer and the personal layer. And the last time we were in the personal layer, we had this like moment of like a very emotionally charged moment with like looking at the daughter and being like, I could not have made you alone. And for some reason that really hit hard for me. I don't really know how to explain it, but it did. And it's like suggesting at the father. Okay. And lo and behold, the father is right in front of me. So when we come back to this layer, we're not actually sticking with a strict chronology. Now we're back to the age of 6 for the daughter. We'll see what happens. Okay, that was very, very brief. Logogram was a misnomer. Ideogram is how it was used in the past. I forget what. Oh, it's for Chinese. So, wait. So then what's logogram? Yeah, that's logogram, but ideogram. Idea or concept. Okay, so it's a little different. I see. I guess the idea here is that the ideogram makes things sound a little too primitive, and she's trying to convey the idea that's pretty advanced. Semagram, like semantics semagram. Just a brief aside on the research that went into this. One thing about that, earlier I kind of shed on the 5 years claim, but as a writer who writes for pretty educated audience, you probably, if you're gonna take on the character of a linguist, you probably want to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You want the dialogue to feel real, and you want to be able to say things confidently. So I'm pretty sure he put in quite a bit of legwork there, and so I might qualify my previous claim about this. The only difference between a sentence or a paragraph was size. When a sentence grew sizable, the visual impact was remarkable. Tropical, thank you. Like praying mantids drawn in a cursive style. Escheresque lattice. this is the part where we can now veer towards a little bit more mystical, okay? Because now we have the um, mimetic, is that the right word? We have the sort of atomic logic of how it works, but we don't need to know the details. So we can just have an Escher-esque lattice, and we have this like sort of, I don't know what you're imagining if you read this, but like, you could just imagine this very elaborate tapestry of lines. Psychedelic posters. Okay. Hey, Tropical, I'm glad I could. Uh, oh man, I'm so tired. Okay, here we go. College graduation, so we're jumping pretty far late. Thanks, man. Mortar board. What is a mortar board? Is that called a mortar board? It is. I did not know that. Holy crap. The cap and gown. The cap? Nelson and your father and what's her name there all at the same time. So this is the second time that what's her name came out to describe the father's wife or new, yeah, love interest. Um, the sort of the dismissiveness of what's her name does suggest some additional tension that we're going to explore in the future. Like maybe the father cheated on her with this what's her name. And it is interesting that the entire story is the mom talking to the um, the daughter in the second person and basically ignoring the father this entire time. So it creates a certain weighting there on this relationship that just doesn't like that raises questions of its own, like with like what's going on with the father. Is this a homework assignment of mine? No, it's not. It's just for reading for fun because of recommendations. This is the first time I found the future tense grammar funny. I can't believe that you, a grown woman, taller than me and beautiful enough to make my heart ache, this is at the age of 22, will be the same girl I used to lift off the ground. So obviously, in a more typical grammar, it would be that you were the same girl I used to lift off the ground, but we're actually in the present, which is her with the baby right now. Um, so this weirdly, this actually, I don't know how intentional this was, but this is kind of crazy. This is actually kind of crazy, and I don't know if I'm the only one who freaks out at this moment, who's freaking out at this moment. But just before, I'm too far from the mic. Just before this paragraph, we had the whole thing of the I said tapestry, but what was the actual word? She had just mentioned that the writing looked like fanciful praying mantids drawn in a cursive style. Okay, so these semagraphs, right? They expand in size from a central point in some way. At least that's the way I was thinking about it. And then I see this, and then I see that the tense gets used. The tense of the verb gets used extremely fluidly. And I don't know about you. I don't know if you can imagine where I'm going with this, but like, it's like, it's like the fucking it's like the tenses are built into this ideogram, and you're allowed to be in a single semogram, or I said ideogram, semogram, in this single semogram, you have you have these tenses that are just built in, so you're allowed to be multiple times simultaneously, and so you have like a sort of like omni-language, like omniscient language, where you can be in the future, in that future, and that future, the further future and the near future at the same time in the same sentence, um, and and I feel that this weird grammatical moment is hinting at that possibility, and it's actually trying to translate that into English in that very moment, uh, which I think is super cool. Yes, falling in love with me. Yes, that's the unfortunate side effect of being a dope ass teacher. Okay. uh, here we go. By the way, my energy level, I earlier, like I actually said I was gonna probably stop, and I still think I will stop like 50-60% of the way through the story, but my energy level just went up. So I like that we keep going back to how the daughter is so different from the mom, because um, this keeps hinting at this underlying tension with the with the father, because the daughter that she loves so much cannot have been made by her alone. So you'll do what makes you happy. That'll be all I ask for. This Yeah, that biological connection that I mentioned like a couple like an hour ago. That's major. That's a major development there. I'm flattered. Tropical, thank you. And Ash, hello. Yeah, you're eh, Ash. If you would like to confess your love for me as well, this is your moment. Okay, so they're actually making progress. They're moving towards math and physics, subject matter, face to face, arithmetic, geometry. Ooh, this is gonna be fun. Um, Geometry and algebra, roadblock. So geometry is where we start getting, what's it, non-Euclidean. You can be non-Euclidean. You can have like a bunch of different ways to go with this. Um, so what is it? And math is interesting because it's such a, in a way, it's an artificial system. So yeah. Anyway, it's hard to explain. I don't have the words to explain this, but basically, super interesting because we have languages and we have stories and we have math, and they're all colliding into the same system right now. Can I donate some money? You gotta give me some money. I gotta give you some money for you to donate me money? I don't know. I don't think that's what you mean to say. Unless you are also using the semographic language here on me, I have no idea what you're saying. We tried using a spherical coordinate system instead of a rectangular one, but that was more fruitful. Okay. Anything abstract didn't work. We had to be very close to physical things. Mass acceleration. Right, pictures didn't work. Okay. Linguists were interesting. That's interesting because for the other I'm just thinking about the other stories that Ted Chiang wrote in this collection, but like this is the linguistic story out of this collection. And so what's happening right now is we're Ted Chiang is kind of suggesting that math is sort of dependent on the language, I think. Okay, I'm being tentative with that claim, but I think Ted Chiang is. I think he's kind of playing with this idea that the language determines the method. The language that we speak determines the mathematics that we use. Free word order, no preferred order for the clauses, and a conditional statement. Okay, sure, but is that true of? Isn't that true of English too? I'm confused. Anyway, it also appeared that the heptapods had no objections to many levels of center embedding of clauses. Something that quickly. That's actually true. Peculiar but not impenetrable. Okay. Center embedding of clauses is like this, by the way. Instead of saying "I like you because you are kind," "I because you are kind like you," and then we can keep center embedding. I because you. I because you. Uh, a generous person are kind like you. So I just double center embedded. This story is interesting for me because I actually can explain a lot of the concepts, but I just double center embedded modifiers into my sentence. I, because you are kind like you. I, because you, a generous person, are kind like you. Okay, it's getting overwhelming. Oh, he actually uses the word radicals for this. Okay, well, that was. Uh, I called it. There were non segmental graphemes. They couldn't be isolated. Okay. Which that makes it kind of like prepositions, like graphical prepositions. To see, to observe. Okay, this is funny because I talked about the personal layer, the academic layer, and then the bureaucratic societal layer. Okay, in the academic layer, we're actually having quite some like a quiet, unspoken intimacy between the researchers, the research team of the linguist and the physicist, and the aliens. Okay, they're communicating. They're having a normal interaction, or not normal. Um, they're having a meaningful interaction and exchange. Um, but the framing around it is they were hired, these researchers were hired by the military, and the military is assuming hostility and all these other things. So that's at the bureaucratic layer. Uh, what's what's I don't know about beautiful, but what's I don't want to say cute again, but what's cute about this is that the aliens and the scientists, they're just here for the same thing, man. They're just learning from each other, to see, to observe. Hey, me too. I'm just watching. I'm just asking. I'm just curious, And we're in this sort of idyllic, sort of like suspended reality, where every time they step out of
the the chamber or the workspace, every time they step out of it, the scientists are now, they have to make a report to the military people and blah blah, and and it's very jarring. I'm still struggling to build the connection to the personal layer, but I feel the connection to the personal layer because I feel like the aliens are kind of like the daughter, right? In some way, I don't know exactly how, but there is a connection, and it's intimate and it's real, right? And then the dad is in the background, and there's something off that's happening there. So uh, I'm not sure exactly if that's the right way of framing it, but that's kind of the way, that's what's informing my reading as I go on from this point. Oh, I'm not even sharing the screen. Oh my god, I'm being so stupid. Oh, dude, I'm just so. Oh my god, so annoying. I've been such a crappy. Dude, my streaming habits are so so frustrating. My streaming habits have gone fallen by the wayside. It's so bad right now. Holy crap. At this point, I've made these kinds of mistakes so many times that I feel like I actually need I need like a solution. But I'll think of that another time. Let's keep going. Perhaps they were scientists, perhaps they are tourists. So my little quibbles with the with the dialogue sometimes aside, with the adult mom's voice aside, um, it's actually legit impressive how embodied this female character feels, written by a male reader. Now, sorry, written by a male writer. I am a male reader, by the way. So if any uh, female readers disagree with me, I'm curious what you think. Hesitant, but I will tentatively make that observation. So let me know what you think. But this feels like a pretty embodied and like a fleshed out mom daughter relationship. It feels real to me. And actually, now that they went, why am I being so hesitant, dude? People love, like, a lot of women in the Goodreads in the Goodreads reviews. A lot of women like really freaked out about this story. They love this story. Not that that counts for everything, but anyway, I'm being pedantic and defensive. 13-year-old. I'm not hired help. I can't let anyone see you with me. How is different? This is shopping. Okay, yeah. Okay. Ooh, we're gonna get a little graph later on. Okay, let's go. Illinois got a repetition physics. Okay, so a repetition means right a pattern that they can see, you know, on a physics terminology or a physics concept. Don't worry, I didn't need any of that. Oh, that's a joke. He started erasing my background. Good. Okay. Picked up another, yeah, because this physicist, and I actually like this physicist character. He's very minor character, but the very minimal characterizations of this character of what's his name, Gary. Um, the very minimal characterizations of Gary make him feel very real. Air, water. Just for grins. It's an interesting phrase. I did not know this. That's actually crazy, but I did not know this. It's neat, alright, but how come I haven't heard of Fermat's principle? Me neither. And not ordinary calculus, you need calculus of variations. And this is something that I looked at on the Wikipedia page for this story, and I almost got chills just now because now we're opening up a whole other area, like a whole other area of just content, you know, of just stuff for this story to deal with. And it's actually exciting because, you know, because the linguistics idea, I had that sort of breakthrough moment with the tense collision, the farther future tense and then the closer future tense coming in backwards order, right? I had that moment where I kind of freaked out about that. And now I'm getting this calculus of variations and this new physics principle. I didn't even know this before, and I was a good physics student, not really in college, but in high school. So this is super cool. You think what they think is simple doesn't match what we think is simple because their math is different. If their version of calculus is better than our version, oh no, it's easier than their algebra, then that might be why. Right, that is so crazy. It's more accurate to say light always follows an extreme path, either one that minimizes time taken or maximizes it. Minimum, sure. That is so weird and insane. So it's kind of Schrodinger's cat between the min max. So it's a variational principle. In all branches of physics can be restated. Oh, this is in which attribute is min-maxed? I had no idea that that existed. It's insane. But okay. Time is the attribute that has been extreme. Similar mathematically. You should put the other ones. God, I hope so. It's the one that cracks open their formulation of physics. Dinner ma treat. All right, and this is where I will stop my reading because I feel the excitement, but I also feel the sleepiness hitting. And I do feel like we're actually opening up a new chapter in the story at this point. So here, let me do a quick recap. On the personal layer, very first page, we just zip through the story, the story of your life. Okay, the story of your life, as in the story of my daughter, your life. And we get to her death right away. We know that framing right away. We also know that in the personal layer, we're actually, I guess there's also, interestingly, there's like a separate like narrative layer where the narrator is actually specifically situated with the baby, apparently, right? But anyway, in the personal layer, there's the there we explore, after we zoom through the 25-year lifespan of the daughter. We kind of jump around different episodes, and it's basically a sort of not nostalgic really, but a kind of a romantic sort of a vignette sort of recollections of the daughter, but these recollections are happening in the future. Okay, we're remembering the future right now, because at the narrative layer, she's still with the baby or something crazy like that. Okay, now at the academic layer, this is actually before the baby was ever born, I think. No, yes, almost certainly before the baby was ever born. At the academic layer, we have the actual encounter with the aliens, and we're developing. And this is the most, and this is, I'm calling it this, the academic layer, because it's very intellectually. Its primary stimulus is intellectual, like, we're kind of we're building this little world, and the world we're building in this case is the language and their mathematics now. So we just went from stage 1 to stage 2. We're moving from language to mathematics. In that academic layer, I don't know where to classify this per se, but like there's also a social bureaucratic layer where we have this sort of intimacy with the aliens, and like this kind of like oddly peaceful camaraderie, I guess. Not camaraderie, like connection to the aliens, but it's set against this sort of like military and societally like sort of heavy background, and that's just always creating white noise constantly throughout this story. I am feeling very excited to get into this variational calculus and see how that unfolds throughout the story. I really want to know what happened with the husband, and like this weird thing that's going on where we're kind of ignoring the husband the whole time. Like I want some resolution to that. Simultaneously, I'm scared of what's going to happen with the military. I'm scared. I don't remember what happens in the movie, so I just have this premonition that something bad is going to happen with the military, but I don't know what it is. So those are my expectations so far, or those are the things that are setting my expectations so far for the rest of the story. So right now, first thing I'm gonna do is remind myself where exactly I am. If I recall correctly, this story is actually more or less a novella. I think it was like 50 pages. Let me actually go and figure it out. So it starts at 89 and ends at 145. So that's about 55 pages. 55 pages, and I am currently at page 119, which means I read 30 pages so far. Okay. So I am a little past halfway. Now I remember what I was thinking last week. I was thinking of the framing of the personal and the scientific and the political. The personal, the scientific, the personal, the academic, the political. I think that's the terminology I used last time. And thanks for bearing with the slurps. I'm sleepy today and I need some coffee. Okay, gonna put that out of the way. So, I really liked how there was a sense of intimacy with the aliens, and this intimacy with the aliens actually feels kind of analogous to her intimacy with her with the narrator's intimacy with her daughter, the daughter who is to grow and to die in the future, because the current framing is we're not even, I think we might just be at her birth or something like that. So it's like this interesting time travel-y sort of living in the future story, which is enabled by the language that the narrator learns through the aliens, that she can experience the future. So we just got into some of the academic aspects of it, I think, and now I'm reorienting myself around, well, we already know what's going to happen to the daughter. The remaining tension is really between the political, the military really, and the aliens. And the other remaining tension, actually, there's one more that I recall, is the husband, the husband with whom, actually, there's like this weird irony and dissonance, right? Where she knows the future, so of course in the present she's not going to feel very like from the husband's perspective, it's going to be like, who is this crazy lady? And so, like, the fact that she cuts out all of the intimacy from her memories of the future with the husband suggests that something is about to happen now. You know what? I need to do something really quickly. I don't remember the very first page, so I want to go back and catch up on the very first page. The reason is because the very first page is where we frame the entire story in the quote-unquote present. Okay, so I want to remember that framing. Wait, am I at the right? Yeah, still at page 90. Okay, here we go. Story of your life is about to ask me the question. Oh, it's not actually with her pregnant, it's with her, actually, the first page is, the present is actually when they're still romantic. That makes it even more ironic and makes the tone even more like kind of jarring, because of how sort of excluded the dad is. They're dancing. And then the baby. Oh, that charges the emotion, like the emotive power of this thing. This is a lot. Oh, okay, so honestly, whatever happens between the alien and the military, I feel like that's going to be less interesting and less of the focus than what happens between the narrator and her husband. Okay. Yeah, wow. Okay. So back to 119. So I'm gonna back up a couple pages, just or a couple screens, I guess, because these aren't full pages, just to kind of rebuild some momentum, and I'm gonna resume reading. Right, they have a mathematics that whose first principles are very, very, very different. So what is obvious to us is less obvious to them. What's obvious to them is less obvious to us. That kind of situation. Both situations can be described with one example. That's an equation. That's such a crazy thing. This variational math. I was mildly surprised. Right, he's. I forgot their names now. Is it Gary? Um, Luis. Okay, Gary, I think, and Luis. We got Luis at least. Yeah, and I think this is where I ended my initial read. Let's keep going. Asymmetry in our relationship. It's an interesting way of describing that relationship. I'm just thinking if that connects to the aliens in some way. This idea of remembering something in the future is kind of interesting, but I didn't really love this passage so far. It's just I don't know. I don't know what it did really, other than feel warm and fuzzy. Action, the difference between kinetic and potential energy, integrated over time, whatever that meant for us, elementary to them. So this is just interesting, but nothing more than that so far. What kind of perception made a minimum or a maximum readily apparent to them? That's a more fruitful question, and that's less like a teacher talking, more like a novelist. You will have many suitors. Black hair, blue eyes. I just realized something. I'm not reading with the optimal view for YouTube. Uh, Dude, I'm so out of practice. I keep forgetting. All right, there we go. I remember being interested in this back and forth between the two levels, but like right now, I'm actually losing interest. Is it just because I took a break and I lost my momentum? Like, I want something more to happen now. Like the sort of going back and forth between. I like we got the math out of the way. So like, what's next, right? What's next? I find it interesting that we keep using the word looking glass instead of like mirror for a mirror. That seems intentional, some weird, quirky way. A looking glass in the sense that you're looking at this other alien that's there. Okay, so word order doesn't matter. They sometimes repeat the same word order, sometimes they don't. I don't know if you can hear my cats. They might. It's a little early for the food, so let's ignore them. I assume our atmosphere has a lot of nitrogen, argon, and oxygen, except maybe less argon, because that seems less familiar to me. 1528 was covered by water, so that sounds kind of like similar. We have a lot covered by water, right? 1528 is a little bit more than half. What? Inequality of size, rocky orbiters, related as
Okay, so rocky orbit is moon, inequality of size. Comparing that initial stroke with a completed sentence, I realized that the stroke had different clauses of the message. That's actually insane. It began in the semagram for oxygen. Morpheme of comparison in the description of two moon sizes. Hang on, let me go and find this. So that's the inequality word, but oxygen as well simultaneously. Huh. So the clauses, so a single graphical representation is multiple clauses in a sentence. So this is where we get towards like time travel, right? Towards like the future. Careful planning by expert calligraphers. So it's kind of like visual puns in some way, right? Hmm. It just doesn't sound like the law of physics. You're used to thinking of refraction in terms of cause and effect. Reaching the surface of the cause is for sure, because it describes light's behavior in goal-oriented terms instead of cause and effect. It sounds like a commandment, thou shalt minimize or maximize. It's an old question in the philosophy of physics. People have been talking about it since Fermat first formulated it in the 1600s. Hmm. That's insane. Huh. Teleology means, well, actually, I don't really fully know what that means, but like the purposes, right? Here, I'll quickly do this. So, like, now that I think about it, I don't really use the word teleology, but the studies of evidences of design in nature, right? Sure. I mean, telos means purpose, or I mean, it's kind of like the root for purpose. I'm trying to think of like how to actually use this word. The absence, trying to experience. Okay, there we go. The absence of teleology. That makes sense to me. Particular nationalist teleology. Sure, like a nationalist worldview with purposes. Directionality is like kind of purposiveness. Right, evolution all implying some sort of intention, some sort of purpose. So going back to this really quickly. Sorry, I think you just heard my own voice from a different video just suddenly playing. Cleaning up my windows right now. Okay, so that's really interesting. Like, imagine, although it's interesting because now that I read that evolution example, that's like, you know, polluting my mind. But like, it's interesting how we also tend to think of evolution as having basically a purpose, as being teleological. It's weird to think of physics that way. Anthropomorphic projectionally, sure. So that just means if I can speak like, if I can just personify light as having intentions, that's the translation of that phrase. The light has to examine the possible paths to compute how long each one would take. Sure, that's kind of machine learning-y in a way. And to do that, know just where its destination is. Okay. Of course, so there has to be an end goal first. The light ray has to know all that ahead of time. Computation has to do all the computations at the very beginning. So this is the analogy now. The analogy to the language. Oops. Oops. Where's writing to the writing of the language, right? Okay, we did the bare minimum to set up the analogy. So I guess what's probably changing the way that I read this story, What's Up Survivor or Brawl Stars, what's probably changing the way that I read this story is because I actually know the reveal in a way. And I wasn't conscious of the fact that I know the reveal, but it's because I just watched the movie and I just got reminded of it, and it just hit me subconsciously. Maybe that's why I'm kind of like losing my interest. Because this kind of writing does feel like the setup for the reveal. All right, here we go. They both, okay. And as I predicted, that the real tension is this relationship. This is reinforcing my prediction. Semasiographic.
I reached a point where it worked better when I didn't think about it too much. She's mastering this future language, which is so now we're getting very close to. This is getting very close to the reveal, to the kind of like the mental break. I was developing a faculty like that of the heptapods. You know, it's funny because one thing that always kind of like shocked me um, was rappers, like how they would have these rhymes in their heads ahead of time, like before they even utter the first word of the line. Uh, so I think that's kind of like a real world analog. Thinking typically meant speaking in an internal voice. Sure, we can think in English or Russian. A linguistic yet non-phonological mode. To think in ASL instead of English. That's interesting. My thoughts are becoming graphical instead of. That is interesting. Hang on, hang on, hang on. So, this is more interesting from a scientific standpoint rather than. Seeing semograms with my mind's eye. This kind of reminds me of. Uh, I didn't watch. I only watched the first episode. Was it called The Queen's Gambit? You know, the Netflix show? Yeah, The Queen's Gambit. And how the main character in The Queen's Gambit like lays in that bed and like imagines all the moves. It's kind of like that. Yeah, 저녁 시간 아니야. My cat keeps begging for food, but it's not. It's not dinner time. Okay. Mandalas. This is like a mantra kind of thing. A geometric. Oh, it's a fit. Is a bit. I, huh. Interesting. Okay. Meditative state, contemplating the way in which premises and conclusions are interchangeable. No train of thought. That's interesting to get rid of that metaphor altogether. All components all having identical precedence. You're thinking of like multi-clause ideas simultaneously without having a linear progression. uh, okay. So this is her getting closer and closer to the ability to just remember the future. Oh, we finally have the government come back. It's been a long time. Although it's interesting because if the aliens know how to read the future, then maybe that's why they're so chill. The non-zero sum game. Oh my god, it's so funny how how Ted Chiang used this concept, like kind of foreshadowed this concept earlier. Um, it's a little cute, if anything. A non-zero sum game. You're the This daughter is very much like what do you call it, like a sympathetic object that gets tossed around here. The real object, the real sort of conflict is the, like, I feel that's my prediction. I might be wrong, but I'm thinking that this story is gonna veer around to the husband at some point. But I mean, it's getting close to the end, and we're really not getting there. So I'm like not sure what's gonna happen. All the academics are tired of the bureaucrats. Hmm. But no threat of violence at the moment. The physical attributes that they found intuitive were defined by integrals meaningful only over a period of time. One needed knowledge of the effects before the causes could be initiated, which feels extremely meaningful because of the framing of the story. I'm actually getting chills now. The very first sort of decision that this narrator has to make at the very beginning of the story is, will we have a baby? Whoa. Want to have a baby. And what that implies is that, the narrator Louise knows everything that will happen, the divorce, the death, and yet she decides because there's some sort of teleology, there's some sort of purpose, some intention behind all that. Interesting, because now that shifts my thinking a little bit. It means that we're allowed to ignore the husband, because now it becomes an internal conflict. Now the primary tension is why. Right. So she chooses to have the baby, even though she's gonna be. This is kind of beautiful because it's like this acceptance of the imperfect. The fundamental laws of physics were time symmetric. There's no physical difference between past and future. So yes, theoretically. No, because of free will, which is related to cause and effect. Dude, that's interesting because I know that the direction of time I remember thinking about this because of a different book, um, The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli, and he talks about how entropy and the directionality of time are directly connected somehow. So that would refute this kind of argument, but that's, I don't know, I'm just imagining. We directly refer to Borges. Okay. Can we just know the future? It's interesting. Okay, I like to imagine, I'm going to continue. I like to imagine the objection as a Borgesian fabulation. Fabulation, that sounds very Latin. Consider a person standing before the book ages. The chronicle records every event, past and future. The story of her life. What she'll be doing later in the day. $100 on the racehorse and win 20 times that much. There's the rub. She now resolves to refrain. Right, the Greek myths. Vague. Okay. The existence of free will. So right now we're doubting. Instead of assuming free will, actually, this book is actually this text is actually assuming the absence of free will. Right. That's interesting because this actually kind of, never mind. This is actually a little bit different from what I was saying, because this is not assuming free will doesn't exist. It means that for some reason the knowledge of the future makes you do it. Is that the same as free will? Like, because it gives you this obligation. In the same way that that's interesting because of the light, the variational principle with the Fermat's principle with light, because you kind of know the end goal or the end state, and you're going to choose either the minimum or the maximum condition, and you're going to go. And once you do it, you're not going to change it. Maybe it's just the end. The end is the end itself creates that obligation. Of this is a very very interesting take on fate and free will. Very different from anything I've ever heard before. This Gary guy is definitely the most likable person here. Oh, dude, I'm getting hungry now. Oh, I didn't see this change in setting. The setting is when you are 3. So you pull the dish towel off, cut on the forehead. Oh, we're talking about this urgency. Oh, whoa, is this that salad bowl? That's crazy. A wooden salad bowl. Ah, that's interesting. This is the first time that we actually like interpolate the multiple episodes of the future right next to each other. Uh, hang on, let me. I want to check if I use that word correct. Interpolate, interpolate, in, interpolate, interpolate. So yeah, I mean more or less. No, I guess not really. It's kind of the wrong. But I can't think of a better word right now, so whatever. But we're having multiple episodes of the future, the Gary shopping, the future of that future, which is the oh, it's actually that might be the past. It's weird. Ah, dude, that's actually confusing as hell. No, I guess that is the past. It's the past and the future. I made a mistake. But I guess really from the theoretical, from this story's perspective, it doesn't matter whether it doesn't really matter whether it's the past or the future. You know, it's all one thing. Multiple clauses simultaneously, all sort of encapsulated in one idea. Two very different utterances. This reminds me a little bit of Wittgenstein, the the rabbit. Actually, the fact that this is definitely Wittgenstein because he's using the duck rabbit. Like, if you use the word rabbit and you're gonna do this pun, you have to be referring to Wittgenstein. There's no way he doesn't know either. Only context, and that's exactly what Wittgenstein talks about. So, yeah. Um, I wonder, do I like Ted Chiang stories? I don't know. Is he being too clever? You know, is he too smart, too academic? Like that's kind of the thing that I'm struggling with here. Because I like it from a non-fiction standpoint. From the standpoint of like fiction, do I like it? I don't know. Explain it by saying that a difference in the index of refraction caused the light to change direction, and one saw the world as human size. Maybe saying minimize the time needed to travel. Hmm. Hmm. That first sentence down here is pretty banger. The physical universe was a language with a perfectly ambiguous grammar. First acquired the spark of consciousness. Humans were sequential, and heptapods were simultaneous. And they perceived a purpose underlying everything, a minimizing, maximizing purpose. Okay. I'm getting close to the very end. How many? I have about about 11 pages left. I'm gonna take a quick break, a little coffee break, and then I'll wrap up this story. It's keeping me interested enough to just keep, like, there's just enough propulsion to keep me going without forcing it. So it's still I guess I'm liking it. I'm liking it so far. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it, but I'll process it after I actually finish the story. All right, let's take a quick break. Let's just do a quick halfway check. What am I thinking? Let's try to make some predictions. So we know, what we already know is that the daughter dies. They get divorced, Louise and her husband. And this author has clearly developed the ability to kind of know the future through the study of, Heptapod B. Right now, the central tension that we seem to be driving at is, why would she choose this life, this imperfect life, right? And so Ted Chiang is going to, here's my prediction, is going to, imbue her with an urgency for living this life. But it's gonna be humanistic in a way, even though we're being less, we're dealing with non-human characters and non-human ways of thinking. And I don't know how he's going to resolve it. So I feel like there's definitely a very, very immense creativity behind this story. I guess the easy way to resolve it is say something, I don't know, cheesy, like, but the cheesiest thing you could do is something like, but I chose because I enjoyed every minute of my time with you, something like that. Well, that's at least one way of ending that story. So we'll see how Ted actually does end the story. So I am making a correction to my earlier prediction. I no longer think there's going to be much emphasis on the political issues. That's kind of like the ongoing conflict between the bureaucrats and the academics. I assume what'll happen is that the bureaucrats will sort of win out by kind of shutting down the whole operation. And the academics are going to be like, oh shucks, but Louise is fine because she already like learned the language, right? Maybe that was their purpose in coming here to Earth. So I think that's going to get resolved. I think we're just going to sort of sweep that. We're going to be done with that. And then the thing with the divorce, I don't think we're going to really get into the reasons why they got divorced. It's pretty much beside the point at this point. So we're really just gonna delve into the self, like what is a human, such that even if we know the future, we will never choose not to choose that future. We'll never not choose that future. you know? And how are we still human even if we don't have what we typically consider free will, you know? That's a very interesting and it feels like pregnant with beauty. Like it has this idea. There's something deeply beautiful about that idea and that the investigation into this question. And that speaks to Ted Chiang's genius that he can actually formulate it a lot better than I can because I can't think of how to express that at all right now. I can't say it what I want to say to this beautiful thing that I want to say. So, yeah, actually, just by talking through that, making these predictions and talking through that, I've been able to increase my excitement a little bit for this, my anticipation for this. Let's get into it. Gonna pick it up. And we are now in the final act, as far as I can tell. That's a pretty crazy dream. Oh, oh, I actually did not expect this because I didn't expect the first scene to be in the past. What? So I'd assumed. Am I the only person who thought that? What the hell? I was not expecting this. I'd assume. Jesus. Well, it could still be in the past, I guess. Dude, too many possibilities going on in my head right now. Okay. I, I, I just assumed faithful couple. Um, in the past, she develops the ability to all this, and then in the what I was calling the present, she's still romantic with the husband, and then he says let's make a baby, and then with the ability to see the future, to know the future, to remember the future, she actually chooses to have the baby. That still makes like the most logical. That still sounds like the most logical chronology to me, but this happened, which is like crazy. I'm gonna just go. I'm gonna stick to my guns, and I'm gonna assume that this is actually still in the past, and the present is still when the husband asked, "Let's have a kid." Or maybe this is the future where she gets back with Gary. That's so crazy. Yeah, that's probably it, dude. I'm actually over. Yeah. And then I'll remember that dream. So this dream is before she's 3. So she was not faithful very early. And then she's gonna keep. And part of the reason she's so protective is because she knows what's gonna happen with the kid, but also just because it's a motherly instinct. So, okay, is this intentional? Is it intentional that I should feel a little lost with the chronology? I don't know. Am I missing something, or is this more or less what everyone goes through? The last radical in the sentence. Which sentence is this? They covered the entire blackboard. Why constrain writing with a glottographic straitjacket? Glotto has to do with like the throat or the tongue. I'm not sure exactly. Okay, this is not super fruitful. I do wanna get into this a little bit. Oops, wrong screen. Hang on. Here we go. Logographic. Lithography, semasiography. This is all written after non-glottographic. Oh, and actually, glotto has to do with tongue. Yeah. Okay. Gloss, right? Okay. Fascinating sort of magnetism, the glotto to associate with some degree of semasiographic. Long writing. It does? It's crazy and didn't know that. Anyway, I don't think it's actually that important, so I'm just kind of geeking out at this point. Not really necessary. Gonna keep going. But basically, glottographic, glotto as in tongue, and graphic as in writing, scratching writing. This fusion is not necessary. The writing is first. The speaking is second. Away. Yeah. A is a poor substitute for B, which makes sense. Okay, so Colonel Weber is here. To participate. Pulled me out of my chair and kissed me. Okay, so this is before the child, I assume. Huh. That's so crazy. Does she already get the ability to see the future? At this point? Like, dude, it's so overwhelming. Okay. I did not know that infant was from unable to speak. What is a klaxon? Oh. You'll live in the present. It's enviable. That's interesting. This contrast between the baby and her sort of what we might have called omniscient person, her baby's person, and her omniscient person. They're neither free nor bound. Okay, so we are attacking that free will argument head on here. It's also that their motives coincide with histories. They enact chronology. Freedom is perfectly real. So this is the academic bit here. Okay, freedom is not within the context of simultaneous. Yeah. For some reason, this makes sense to me. It's like that famous optical illusion, the drawing of light. Do I remember that optical illusion? Knowledge of the future was incompatible with free will. That's interesting. I would never act contrary to the future. Those who've read the Book of Ages never admit to it. I like that. I like that a lot. That's very very like they're among us, you know, kind of thing. Like there are some people, like it's mystical. There are some people who've read the Book of Ages. They know their future. They would never tell you about it because that's not in their future. It's very, very, at the minimum, that's very clever. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. That was very worth it. The heptapods were familiar with the eventual outcome, but they were still enthusiastic because this altruism is not going to make a lot of sense that last passage does feel a bit like just cleaning up some of the. It's like the FAQs right now, so not super interested in that. Gonna keep going. Well, if you already know how the story goes, why do you need me to read it to you? Because I want to hear it. I like the resonance though with that in the previous segment. But I don't like. I'm gonna just move on because no special comment there. It's not like super deep or anything, but it's nice. Matches the silence. So now we are hinting that the narrator has acquired this ability. Yeah. I don't know if this idea is so fruitful. This idea of this language being either informative or performative. Like for me, that clashes in my head with some other ideas that I have for some reason. I'm not sure exactly. I'm not going to tease it out right now, but for me, that doesn't really land. Cigarette ash. Hmm. Hang on. New memories fell into place like gigantic blocks. Ending with my death. That's 50 years. Yeah. Yeah. My cat's just like hollering at me. Past and future all at once. The consciousness becomes a half-century long ember burning outside time. Simultaneity. It's in the entirety of yours. Oh, I like how that ends. That's a that includes all 25 years of daughter. Hmm. I like this. I like the God. It's this thing. I wish I could just fix it and keep it from moving, but I didn't want to see what our governments might do with it. Interesting. Saw no indications of what would happen shortly, so apparently seeing the future is not always there. His delivery was perfect. Transparent. We just saw a demonstration of transmutation at a distance. What is transmutation? Right. At a distance. What does that mean? Hmm. 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 Kind of like these mysterious aliens. And I like this. I like how she doesn't fully get it. She only gets it partly. Hmm. I met your father. Hmm. What? I met your father and learned Heptapod B. Why is that so confusing? Am I the only one that's confused by this? like, like, what's the chronology here, man? She met him later. She met him later, so she wasn't unfaithful. Ugh. I must have missed some cues earlier on. Hmm. Will I achieve a minimum or maximum? Hmm. Do you want to make a baby? And this is exactly what I was. Yes, and I smile and answer yes. I unwrap his arms from around me to make love. Thank you. That was
actually a lot faster than I expected. That ending right there is like it's a 5-line paragraph. Now this is in a very zoomed in view, so it's probably in the print paperback book. It's like 2-line paragraph. That was very fast and very punchy and very nothing sappy, nothing super obvious. It's just what it had to be. It's just exactly what it had to be. Just, yes, I will make you. And I really like how we never really. I was kind of struggling with this, but I like how we never really explore the reasons for the divorce. It keeps the focus on the you, on the child story. And the voice is kind of the voice of this narrator is like kind of hauntingly here, zooming out. The voice of this narrator is kind of like hauntingly tragic and peaceful, and knowing and at peace and loving. It's a very complex voice that is created by this sort of weird impersonal, sort of like, it feels impersonal, feels kind of distant, it feels a little unreal because she's so like matter of fact. The emotions are all under the surface. That was such it was a strange, ingenious, heady. It was a little cerebral, pretty cerebral at times, but oh god, that ending was actually really good. But there's such, the feeling is so right, like I can kind of nitpick at the sort of explanations that kind of go like kind of go a little too far, and I think they're a little unnecessary, and and some bits of like schmaltz, like is schmaltz the right word? Some bits of like kind of like this kind of sentimentality that I don't feel like is fully embodying this feeling, but I think the attempt itself is kind of imperfect, but the actually I'm gonna reuse a concept, like a way of thinking that I learned from Thomas Flight. Um, like I respect the commitment to this idea so much, even though there are some rough edges, and I don't really like love every single sentence, for example. But like this, like he totally nailed, Ted Chiang totally nailed like this feeling, this very unique feeling, that I've in this very unique way, that that's new to me. It's fresh. Um, I wish I didn't have that ongoing confusion about like the chronology of things. I remember reading the first half of this story, feeling like I was pretty on top of the chronology, but like in the second half, I started getting very destabilized, and I was getting lost. I'm pretty sure that was not intentional. That I probably just missed some details somewhere. So we'll see what if I reread this, I'll be able to figure that out. But putting that aside, I mean, and that was
in the end, that didn't actually dampen my like my enjoyment of the story that much. So it's actually yeah, that not that big of a deal. And I'm just trying to think like this story. I can't make a real judgment of it yet because it's so different. But maybe I should just try to explore that feeling. This exploration of free will and like foreknowledge and like knowing that things won't go exactly as one would want, right? And yet still choosing. It's a story of a mother's love, and it's the story of what makes us human. And and the voice is very complex, but it's very human. Um, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. Not the kinds of emotional devastation that happens through like certain novels that I love, but like, and not the sort of cheap gratification of feeling encouraged or warmed by a happy story, but like but at like a deeper level, you know, um, that the choices that we make are, I mean, I don't know, like faded in some way. And it's almost religious, this feeling, actually, now that I think about it, and it's religious in a very humanistic way. It's like hard to explain this. I don't have the language for this, but like that feeling is it's very good, but it's not sweet. It's not cheap. Yeah, I don't know. It's this is such an interesting story to talk about. It's very hard to talk about, um, but yeah, I really, 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 huh. In the middle of reading it, I didn't expect to like it that much, but I do think I like it more now. We'll see how I feel when I get more time to think about it, but I do like it more now. Okay, so that was Story of Your Life from the collection Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. You can pick up a copy of this in your local bookstore, your English language bookstore. You can the one that I bought is from Kindle, or it's from Amazon.com, and I'm viewing it on my Kindle. I've read 3 stories, or total 4 stories by Ted Chiang so far. Definitely thought provoking, and they're definitely creative and very, very, very smart. So um, I'm looking forward to reading the rest of this collection. I'm very curious about how the rest of this collection plays out. So that's me. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep on learning, keep on growing. Peace.